Well, let's move on to our main topic here, and that was that TBPN was acquired by OpenAI this past week. And if you're not familiar with TBPN, they're a business podcast. It's daily, 5 days a week, 3-hour show. Right in the middle of the day, they were very popular amongst those in Silicon Valley, those in venture capital, startups, that type of thing. So they had the right eyeballs. They only had like 60,000 subscribers on YouTube, for example. They did have a large Twitter following, X following of about 350K, something like that. But when you go back and look at their views, now you can't see Spotify views like the podcast listens on Apple Podcasts and stuff. So I bet those are substantially higher than their YouTube views. You know, just looking at those, they were purchased for $100 million plus by OpenAI. Sam Altman put out a tweet that said, I really like the show. That's why it's my favorite show. That's why I bought it. But it does say something, I think, to, Benjamin Franklin owning ink, owning the printing press. Like, you own your own ink. You can make the news, control the news. And it seems to be a vanity right now for the ultra wealthy to own some sort of media, some sort of news. We've got Bezos, who owns, was it Times? Does he own the New York Times or the Post? One of the two, or maybe it's the Washington Post. He owns one of those. But Bezos owns traditional media. You've got Ellison, who's, have CBS News now merging with, CNN. They're going to merge those two organizations together now.
Hey, didn't GE? I think GE bought NBC in the past, right? Comcast, whatever.
So. Yeah,
I think
Comcast.
That failed.
Yeah. No, it failed. Well, and the thing is right now is that everyone's jamming these mergers through because the administration is open to it. In the past, a lot of these might have been considered monopolies, which is another topic. But you see a lot of that in the traditional media side. There's a lot of ownership there. And then, the new kids on the block have the new media, which is social media, which is your Facebook, your X, your TikTok. Those are all the new media sources, anything that you have eyeballs in front of you. There is a lot of these vanity ownerships. So it kind of opens the door for the questions of, well, how's this podcast going to be used in regard to OpenAI? Well, obviously, they're not going to tell you bad stuff about OpenAI. Maybe they will a little bit here and there. But I imagine, knowing a little bit about history and how those type of things go, that they may have the freedom to speak on that stuff at the beginning, and I imagine it will gradually get clamped down until a frog boiling in a pot of water.
Yeah, even if they were able to manage it and criticize their own entity, who knows what the listeners will believe, right? I think it just erodes the trust.
Yeah.
I guess the test would be like, will you still have a Google executive on or a Claude executive on? I mean, Altman and Dario, right? They couldn't even shake hands or hold hands at that summit. I don't know if you saw the pictures on that.
Mm-mm.
Like, will they invite will he be invited on to go onto the show? Yeah, exactly, right? They can't even. Like, is he going to invite him on the show? Or are they going to invite him on the show?
What a nerdy feud! I mean, imagine the cage fight on that one, though.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Funny.
Yeah. So you're on the board and you look at this and you're thinking, okay, M&A fails at 70, 90%. The main reason typically is that your cultures don't match, which is usually downstream from your business models don't match. OpenAI is not a media company.
Yeah.
So you just wonder right out of the box, hey, how will this ever work? What is the business model here? How much they making? $2 billion per month? This show's making like $5 million a year just through advertisements. They're going to drop the advertisements.
Well, to be fair, okay, so I have another theory here, and to be fair, so they put up some really big numbers in the matter. The show's 11 months old. I left that piece out. They're a very young endeavor, only 11, 12 months old, and they're already bringing in $5 million a year in ad revenue. That's crazy, and it's because they had the right eyeballs. Like, they had expensive eyeballs, the people who are investing and buying things. So,
but their success doesn't mean they'll be successful together.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I mean, that's the whole point of M&A is that jointly you'll create more value than you could have on your own. I know they were projecting they grow to like 30 million very soon too. Yeah. Probably. I would also question one way you might say this M&A can make sense is you get eyeballs that will be your customers. I don't know if that's true. I don't know in the due diligence if they check, are the subscribers actually people who would pay for OpenAI? Now, what could this also be about? Controlling the narrative leading up to the IPO. Right? Yeah. That's if you ask me.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So actually, maybe this is simply a marketing expense that you paid an M&A premium for.
Yeah. If they
Now,
have,
I wouldn't do that as a board, right? I
yeah,
think that tells me maybe you have too much cash,
yeah,
right? That you're spending it on a vanity project. But maybe there's a marketing strategy there. I saw some other X reactions like this is the next big thing in media, and every move these people are making, everybody predicts it's going to change the game.
right.
I would bring you back to the priors, right? The base rates for M&A, 70 to 90% failure to achieve the projected value together.
Yep.
Maybe I'm wrong, but those are the base rates. Maybe they'll beat them,
Well,
right? And this is a startup.
yeah.
If you 11, 12 months old, they got good traction, better than most startups in the world, right? And the base rate for succeeding as a startup is, what, 90% failure rate.
Yeah.
So you combine the M&A failure rate with the startup failure rate, two business models that don't match, then you just wonder. And it wasn't it, didn't they get rid of Sora like
Yeah.
earlier in the week?
Sora's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, so they did that. What was the statement? To create more focus, fewer distractions,
I think
and
it
then
was to
you go
free up
buy
resources. Yeah.
then you go buy a distraction.
Yeah.
Well, presumably it looks like a distraction,
Right.
right? I don't know. Again, I'm not going to say this will fail. I'm just going to say base rates don't look good, and it's a little bit suspicious from the business model perspective. How do these actually match?
Yeah.
And are you going to make a play in media, or is this just I like the show, therefore I spent my shareholders' money?
So I have a couple theories. You're making some good points for sure. I have a couple of my own theories. One is that their audience is likely comprised of some hedge fund managers who are going to be investing in stocks, so the IPO route makes sense. There are some efforts in play right now to get IPOs inside. So if you're not familiar with index funds and index investing, it's a way of buying a broad swath of the market. You can buy a total market fund, you can buy an S&P 500 fund, and they're weighted based on the size of the companies. So these new IPOs with SpaceX and OpenAI coming up for being a public company now bring up an interesting question, because they're immediately going to be bigger than a bunch of the companies that are inside of these index funds. And once you're inside of an index fund, your cash flow is going to go up, because there's people just passively now investing their 401k money in you. That's how I invest as index funds. So you're immediately getting some inflow of cash. So it brings up an interesting question. There are rules right now around how quickly an IPO'd company can end up in these funds. And there's a lot of pressure right now to quicken that pace to get these companies in there quicker. So, a little bit of lobbying, a little bit of getting in front of the right eyes, I think, is involved in there. And I also kind of do believe that at some point we are going to have some sort of AI media companies where media information, it's something that these AIs are really good at, is combing for data. So looking at, X.com and getting the latest tweets, the most viewed, the most commented, whatever. You could have a news AI bot, talk about stuff like that.
Make sure it's real what it's bringing back.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're not perfect, yes, but I think we will get to the point where they'll be good enough. As good as people, right? People make mistakes too. So I think they'll have an error rate around humans at some point, and these guys could be a really good path to consultantship, because they built something impressive within a year, for sure. So I don't want to take that away from
Are you saying there's human slop out there as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, you've just watched a clip from Show Your Priors podcast. We hope you liked it. Check out our main channel for full episodes. We're also anywhere podcasts are found. Give us a like, subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything, but helps us out a ton. We'll see you back next week.